The warning. The emergency klaxons screamed through the Galactic Council chambers like dying stars. Admiral Keth Wharton's four arms moved frantically across his command console, his blue-scaled face twisted with worry. The holographic display before him showed a sight that made even the most experienced military commanders tremble. 3 entire fleets had vanished without a trace. Status report. Wharton barked, his voice echoing through the vast circular chamber where representatives from dozens of species sat in stunned silence. Sir, the Nexus dead zone has expanded by 30% in the last 72 hours, reported Lieutenant Sex, a insectoid Hiverin, whose compound eyes reflected the red warning lights. We've lost contact with the Alterian Third Fleet, the Zentari Defense Squadron, and the Corvin Mining Collective. That's over 200 ships and 50,000 souls. The chamber erupted in panicked chatter. The Nexus dead zone had been a mystery for over a century, a dark region of space where ships entered but never returned. For decades, it had remained stable, a manageable threat that could be avoided. Now it was growing, consuming everything in its path like a hungry beast. Captain Sarah Chen stood quietly at the human delegation's platform, her keen eyes studying the tactical displays. Unlike the other species present, humans were relatively new to the galactic community, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 50 years ago. Despite their short time among the stars, they had already earned a reputation for doing the impossible. The pattern is wrong, Sarah said suddenly, her voice cutting through the noise. The chamber fell silent as all eyes turned to her. This isn't random expansion. There's intelligence behind it. Admiral Wharton's head snapped toward her. Explain, human. Sarah stepped forward, her uniform crisp despite the long hours she'd spent analyzing the data. Look at the expansion vectors. The dead zone isn't growing uniformly. It's targeting specific regions rich in rare minerals and populated systems. Something inside is making choices. The Zentari representative, a massive reptilian creature with golden scales, hissed in disbelief. Impossible. Our scientists have studied the zone for generations. There's nothing alive in there. It's a gravitational anomaly, nothing more. Then explain the energy signatures, Sarah replied calmly. She gestured to her aide, Dr. Marcus Webb, who activated a new display. Our deep space sensors detected unusual quantum fluctuations just before each fleet disappeared. These aren't natural phenomena. Dr. Webb, a thin man with graying hair and tired eyes, stepped forward. The readings suggest something is actively consuming the ships, not just destroying them. The energy patterns match what we'd expect from a living organism, but on a scale we've never seen before. A murmur of fear rippled through the chamber. Commander Thane Krex, the Zentari tactical advisor, stood with his massive frame casting a shadow over the smaller delegates. Even if you're correct, what can be done? We've lost our 3 strongest fleets. The remaining forces are barely enough to defend our core worlds. Admiral Wharton's mandibles clicked nervously. The Galactic Defense Force recommends immediate evacuation of all systems within 50 light-years of the dead zone's current border. We cannot risk losing more ships. Evacuation isn't the answer, Sarah said firmly. Running away won't solve the problem. The zone is expanding faster than we can evacuate. At this rate, it will consume half the galaxy within a year. Then what do you suggest, human? Wharton's voice carried a mixture of desperation and hope. Despite their differences, the alien admiral had learned to respect human ingenuity. Sarah took a deep breath. We go in. We find out what's causing this and stop it. The chamber exploded in protests. The Alterian delegate, a pale humanoid with silver hair, stood with tears streaming down her face. You don't understand. My brother commanded the Third Fleet. They were the best we had, and they're gone. Whatever's in there destroyed them in minutes. The Corvin Mining Collective had the most advanced ships money could buy, added the Corvin representative, a stocky being with rocky skin. Their shields could withstand a supernova. If they couldn't survive, What chance does anyone else have? Sarah remained calm despite the chaos around her. We don't know that they were destroyed. The energy signatures suggest absorption, not annihilation. They might still be alive in there. Lieutenant Zara Okafor, Sarah's weapons specialist, stepped up beside her captain. She was a tall woman with sharp features and scars on her hands from years of combat engineering. Captain, if you're right about this thing being alive, conventional weapons won't work. We'll need something different. I know, Sarah replied. That's why we're the right choice for this mission. Humans have always been good at finding unconventional solutions. Dr. Webb activated another display showing the human ship UES Defiance. We've been developing new technologies based on quantum resonance theory. If this entity operates on quantum frequencies, we might be able to communicate with it instead of fighting it. Admiral Vorton's 4 eyes widened. Communicate with something that's consumed entire fleets. Think about it, Sarah said. A creature that size, that powerful, living alone in the void for who knows how long. Maybe it's not malicious. Maybe it's just lonely. The Zentari commander laughed bitterly. Lonely? It's a monster. So were humans once, Sarah replied quietly. According to galactic records, when you first encountered us, we were fighting wars across our entire planet. But you didn't destroy us. You tried to understand us. Maybe this creature deserves the same chance. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The Alterian delegate wiped her tears and spoke softly. If there's any chance my brother and his crew are still alive. There is, Sarah said with conviction. But we need to act fast. The zone is expanding, and if we wait much longer, it might become too powerful to stop. Admiral Vorton looked around the chamber at the faces of his fellow delegates. Fear, hope, and desperation warred in their expressions. Finally, he nodded slowly. The Galactic Council authorizes the UES Defiance to investigate the Nexus Dead Zone. However, you will maintain constant communication. If we lose contact, we evacuate immediately. Understood, Sarah replied. We'll need 48 hours to prepare. As the session ended and delegates began filing out, Commander Thane Krex approached Sarah. Despite his intimidating appearance, his voice was gentle. Captain Chen, in my culture, we have a saying. The bravest warrior is not the one who fears nothing, but the one who acts despite their fear. You honor that tradition. Sarah smiled. Thank you, Commander. But we're not warriors today. We're explorers, trying to understand something beyond our experience. Dr. Webb gathered his data pads, his expression thoughtful. Sarah, what if we're wrong? What if this thing really is just a mindless destroyer? Then we'll find another way, Sarah replied. That's what humans do. We adapt, we survive, and we find solutions that others miss. As they walked toward the docking bay where the Defiance waited, Lieutenant Okafor voiced what they were all thinking. Captain, the odds aren't good. Every ship that's gone in there has disappeared. Maybe, Sarah said, looking up at the stars visible through the station's transparent aluminum windows. But every ship that went in there was trying to fight or flee. We're going to try something different. The Defiance was a sleek vessel, smaller than the battleships that had been lost but equipped with the most advanced human technology. Her hull gleamed with the blue-white sheen of quantum-enhanced armor, and her sensor arrays could detect particles across 17 different dimensional phases. Chief Engineer Tom Harrison met them at the airlock, his weathered face showing the strain of the last few days. Captain, we've completed the modifications. The quantum resonance array is online, and we've installed the new communication protocols Dr. Webb designed. What about the crew? Sarah asked. Every volunteer, Harrison replied proudly. When word got out about the mission, we had 3 times as many people wanting to join as we had positions. The crew knows the risks, but they also know what's at stake. As they boarded the ship, Sarah felt the familiar comfort of being home. The Defiance had been her command for 5 years, and every corridor, every control panel, every hum of the engines was as familiar as her own heartbeat. The bridge was a marvel of human engineering, combining efficiency with elegance. The crew moved with practiced precision, each person knowing their role in the dangerous mission ahead. Navigator Chen Liu plotted their course to the dead zone's edge, while Communications Officer Elena Vasquez monitored the quantum frequencies for any signs of the entity. "Captain," Vasquez called out, "I'm picking up something unusual. There's a faint signal coming from the dead zone's boundary. It's not one of our ships, but it's definitely artificial." Sarah moved to the communications station. "Can you clean it up?" "Working on it now," Vasquez replied, her fingers flying over the controls. Slowly, a weak voice emerged from the static. "This is Commander Altic of the Alterian Third Fleet. If anyone can hear this, don't come in here. The entity, it's not what we thought. It's older than our civilizations, and it's hungry." The bridge fell silent as the transmission faded back into static. Sarah's jaw tightened with determination. "Plot a course for the dead zone. Maximum speed." "Captain," Dr. Webb said hesitantly, "that message suggests the entity is hostile after all." "No," Sarah replied, studying the tactical display. "It suggests the entity is misunderstood. Commander Altic said it was hungry, not evil. Maybe it doesn't know how to ask for what it needs." As the Defiance accelerated toward the dead zone, Sarah stood at the forward viewports, watching the stars stretch into lines of light. Behind them, the civilized galaxy continued its daily routines, unaware that their fate might depend on one small ship's ability to talk to a creature older than history. The dead zone loomed ahead, a patch of space so dark it seemed to swallow light itself. No stars shone within its boundaries. No planets reflected distant suns. It was a void in the truest sense, empty of everything except the entity that called it home. 30 minutes to the boundary," Navigator Liu announced. Sarah took a deep breath and activated the ship-wide communication system. "This is the captain. In 30 minutes, we'll enter the dead zone. We don't know what we'll find in there, but we know why we're going. 50,000 souls are depending on us, and an entire galaxy is counting on our success. Remember, we're not going in there to fight. We're going in there to understand." The crew responded with quiet determination, each person focusing on their duties while preparing for the unknown. The Defiance continued its journey toward the darkness, carrying with it the hopes of countless civilizations and the distinctive human belief that any problem could be solved with enough courage and creativity. As the boundary of the dead zone grew larger in the viewports, Sarah whispered a prayer to whatever gods might be listening. In a few minutes, they would cross into the realm of the entity, and nothing would ever be the same again. Into the void. The moment the UES Defiance crossed the boundary of the dead zone, reality changed. The stars vanished as if someone had thrown a switch, plunging them into absolute darkness. The ship's sensors screamed warnings as gravitational fields shifted in impossible ways, and the quantum resonance array began detecting energy patterns that shouldn't exist. "Captain," Navigator Liu called out, his voice tight with concentration, "our instruments are going crazy. I'm reading gravitational signatures from 17 different directions, but there's nothing on visual." Sarah gripped the command chair as the ship shuddered. The darkness outside wasn't just the absence of light. It was something deeper, more profound. It felt alive. "Dr. Webb, what are your readings?" Dr. Webb hunched over his console, his face pale in the blue glow of the displays. "The quantum fluctuations are off the charts. Whatever's in here, it's not just big. It's operating on frequencies we've never encountered before. The entity isn't just in this space, Captain. It is this space." Communications Officer Vasquez suddenly straightened. "Captain, I'm getting multiple signals. They're faint, but they're definitely from the missing ships. The Alterian Third Fleet, the Zentari Defense Squadron, even some of the Corvin miners. They're all here, and they're all alive." "Can you establish contact?" Sarah asked. "I'm trying, but there's interference. It's like something is listening to our communications." And Vasquez paused, her face growing pale. "Captain, I think it's learning from them." The ship lurched suddenly, and through the viewports, they saw something that defied description. Tendrils of pure energy, each one larger than a battleship, began to weave around the Defiance. They moved with purpose, curiosity, gently probing the hull without causing damage. "Shields holding," reported Lieutenant Okafor from the weapons station. "But Captain, these energy patterns, they're not trying to destroy us. They're trying to understand us." Chief Engineer Harrison's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, whatever's out there is scanning our quantum signature. It's not invasive, but it's thorough. It's like it's reading our entire ship, inside and out." Sarah made a decision that would have seemed insane to any other captain in the galaxy. Stand down all weapons. Drop shields to minimum. "Captain," Okafor protested, "if this thing is hostile." "It's not," Sarah said firmly. "If it wanted to destroy us, we'd already be gone. It's curious about us, just like we're curious about it. Dr. Webb, can you modify the quantum resonance array to send a message instead of just receiving?" "I can try," Webb replied, his fingers flying over the controls. "But what do we say to something this ancient and powerful?" "The truth," Sarah said simply. "We tell it who we are and why we're here." As Webb worked, the energy tendrils continued their gentle exploration of the ship. Through the ship's hull cameras, the crew could see that they weren't alone in the darkness. Dozens of ships floated in the void, intact but motionless. The missing fleets weren't destroyed. They were preserved, held in some kind of stasis. "Modification complete," Webb announced. "The array is ready to transmit." Sarah took a deep breath and activated the communication system. "This is Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth ship Defiance. We come in peace, seeking understanding. We know you've taken our ships, but we don't believe you mean harm. We want to talk." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the darkness around them began to shift and change. The energy tendrils withdrew, and in their place, something incredible appeared. It was massive beyond comprehension, a living constellation of light and consciousness that stretched across the entire dead zone. Its form was constantly shifting, sometimes resembling a vast jellyfish, other times a nebula given sentience. When it spoke, its voice resonated through the ship's hull, bypassing the communication system entirely. It spoke directly to their minds, and its words carried the weight of eons. "Small ones," the entity said, its voice like the whisper of solar winds across space. "You are different from the others. They came with fire and fear. You come with curiosity." "We come seeking our lost friends," Sarah replied aloud, hoping the entity could hear her. "The ships you've taken. We want to understand why." The darkness around them pulsed with emotion, and suddenly the crew could feel what the entity felt. Loneliness. Vast, crushing loneliness that had lasted for millions of years. The entity had been alone in the void for so long that it had forgotten what companionship felt like. "Lonely," the entity whispered. "So very lonely. When the metal ones came, I tried to understand. I kept them close, studied them, learned from them. But they stopped moving, stopped making the beautiful sounds. I thought if I gathered more, I could understand how to make them sing again." Dr. Webb's eyes widened with understanding. "Captain, it doesn't realize it's killing them. It thinks it's preserving them." "The crews," Sarah asked gently, "are they still alive?" "Sleeping," the entity replied. "Safe. I keep them safe so they will not leave like the others. All things leave. All things die. But I keep them safe." The ship shuddered as the entity's emotions washed over them. Grief, older than civilizations, pressed against their minds. This creature had watched the birth and death of stars, had seen countless species rise and fall, and had been alone through it all. "You don't have to keep them sleeping," Sarah said. "If you let them wake up, they can talk to you. They can be your friends." Friends. The concept seemed foreign to the entity. "They will leave. They always leave. Not if you give them a reason to stay," Sarah replied. Not if you become part of their community instead of keeping them trapped. Lieutenant Okafor looked at her captain with amazement. Captain, you're trying to negotiate with a cosmic entity older than our solar system. I'm trying to help a lonely being understand friendship, Sarah corrected. Dr. Webb, can you show it our records? Our history of cooperation between different species. Webb nodded and began transmitting files through the quantum array. Images of the Galactic Council, of humans and aliens working together, of the peaceful resolution of countless conflicts. The entity absorbed the information with hungry curiosity. You are all different, it observed, yet you work as one. How? We learn to understand each other, Sarah explained. We learn that differences make us stronger, not weaker. You could be part of that too, if you wanted. The entity was quiet for a long moment, and the crew could feel it processing this new concept. Finally, it spoke again. If I wake the sleeping ones, will they teach me to be part of the singing? Yes, Sarah promised. But you have to let them choose. They have to be free to leave if they want to. And if they choose to stay, then you'll have the friends you've been looking for all this time. The darkness around them began to brighten as the entity made its decision. One by one, the captured ships began to glow with restored power. Communications channels crackled to life as crews that had been in stasis for days or weeks began to wake up. This is Commander Altic of the Alterian Third Fleet, came a confused voice over the radio. What happened? Where are we? Sarah smiled and activated the fleet communication channel. This is Captain Chen of the UES Defiance. You're safe. We're all safe, and we have a new friend who needs our help. Over the next few hours, the most extraordinary first contact in galactic history took place. The entity, which chose to call itself the Shepherd, learned about friendship, cooperation, and the joy of being part of a community. In return, it shared knowledge of the universe that no species had ever imagined. Chief Engineer Harrison worked with Shepherd to develop new technologies that could harness the entity's energy safely. Dr. Webb established communication protocols that allowed for seamless translation between Shepherd's cosmic consciousness and the biological minds of the various species. Captain, Communications Officer Vasquez reported, Admiral Vorton is requesting an update. The Galactic Council is preparing to evacuate the outer systems. Sarah activated the long-range transmitter. Admiral, this is Captain Chen. Mission accomplished. The dead zone is no longer a threat. In fact, it's about to become our greatest ally. The response was immediate and filled with disbelief. Captain, are you saying you've defeated the entity? No, Admiral. We've made friends with it. The Shepherd is lonely, not malicious. It's agreed to help protect the galaxy instead of consuming it. As if to demonstrate, the space around them began to change. The dead zone's boundaries shifted, revealing beautiful nebula and star formations that had been hidden by the entity's grief. Shepherd had been hiding the most beautiful region of space because it was too painful to look at without friends to share it with. Incredible, whispered Navigator Liu. It's like the universe just got bigger. The rescued fleets began forming up around the Defiance, their crews marveling at the transformation of the dead zone. What had been a region of terror was now revealed as a cosmic garden, tended by an ancient guardian who had finally found his purpose. Captain, Commander Altic's voice came over the communication channel. How did you know? How did you know it could be reasoned with? Sarah looked out at the beautiful stars now visible through the viewports, at the ancient entity that pulsed with joy at finally having friends, and at her crew who had trusted her impossible plan. Because that's what humans do. We see the person behind the problem. We look for understanding instead of just victory. Lieutenant Okafor shook her head in amazement. 3 fleets couldn't defeat it with firepower, but one human ship solved it with conversation. Not just one ship, Sarah corrected. One crew willing to listen. One species willing to try something different. As the combined fleets prepared to return to civilized space, Shepherd's voice filled their minds one last time. Thank you, small ones. For the first time in eons, I am not alone. I will guard your peoples, and in return, you will visit and share your songs with me. The journey back to the Galactic Council was triumphant. News of the peaceful resolution spread across the galaxy faster than light, and humanity's reputation as problem solvers and peacemakers grew even stronger. The Dead Zone became the Guardian Zone, a region of space protected by the most powerful entity in the galaxy. Years later, when new species joined the galactic community, they would often ask how humans had managed to turn a cosmic threat into a cosmic ally. The answer was always the same. They had done what humans do best. They had chosen empathy over fear, understanding over conflict, and friendship over force. The UES Defiance returned to Earth as heroes, but Captain Sarah Chen always insisted that the real hero was Shepard, who had been brave enough to trust strangers and open his heart to friendship after millions of years of loneliness. And in the Guardian Zone, among the most beautiful stars in the galaxy, an ancient entity stood watch over the civilizations he had learned to love, no longer the lonely guardian of an empty void, but the protector of a universe filled with friends.